Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is your boy Bachiru. In this video, we'll be talking about how you can improve your defense with RAMLETHAL Valentine. Something I tell every single player. Being good with the offense of like Ram or any character makes you a good player. Being a good defensive player, that's what makes you like a godlike, like a high level player. So in this video, I just want to share my tips about the things that you need to consider when you're playing defensively with RAMLETHAL and how you can actually get your time back. This video will be longer than the other videos and it will be comprehensive. I thought about including matchup tips for some characters, but I feel like I will not be doing that subject any justice. I feel like this kind of video needs to have its own dedicated video, like for particular characters. So, guys, as usual, if you enjoy the content, please consider leaving a like, comment if you have any questions, subscribe if you haven't done already, and let's begin. Yeah, quick plug-in, guys. I started streaming on Twitch. So the link in the description box below. I'm streaming every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 p.m. GMT. That's 11 p.m. Pacific time, and that's around 9 p.m. KSA or GCC time. And if you're living in Japan, that's 12 a.m. So it's twitch.tv/BachiruBB. Link in the description box below. Let's begin with this video. Okay, the first thing you need to do actually whenever you're trying to play on the defensive is you need to understand what are the Gattlings of your opponent. Because you don't want to stop blocking or try to do something in the middle of their Gattlings. And the second thing actually is that you need to identify what are their jump cancelable buttons. Because jump cancelable buttons for your opponent during pressure, that's what makes them actually go like for high or low mix-up, or that's what allows them like to block your burst if you are trying to like to burst out or to do an RC, like YRC setup or something. So the best thing to do actually is you need to understand what are the universal Gattlings in this game. So 5K links into 6P. Close slash links into 6 heavy slash in this game. Close slash leads into far slash. Okay? And your punches lead into each other, and they lead into 6P, and they lead into the other command normals. You should know that 2K leads into 2D. So whenever you, for example, you see your opponent hitting 2K, for example, you know that after 2K, like for example, Sol has this option. Either he can go actually either for like 6 heavy slash, or he can go for a 2D, like to do a high-low mid-low mix-up, or he can do like for example a 5K into 6 heavy slash, or they can actually jump cancel out of the button. So let's now talk about the jump cancelable buttons in Guilty Gear side. The universal jump cancelable buttons actually are 5 kick and close slash, and in some situations, depending on some characters, maybe they will have some other jump cancelable buttons, but that's something to keep in mind. So the basic idea usually that if you are on the defensive and you see your opponent going to one of their normals, you need to understand to what it leads to, because of course some of them can be jumps. So for example, Sol, he can actually just jump and he will try to, for example, just do a jumping attack on you. Maybe they will punch into a, for example, into an anti-air, or for 5K into 6 heavy slash to frame trap you. So understand like the Gattlings of your opponent and the pressure points. The other thing is that actually you need to understand what our buttons actually lead into special moves, because not all buttons in this game actually lead into that. So the general rule actually is that only the heavy slash command normals are the ones that don't lead into special moves. So usually these are the buttons that you cannot actually do something afterwards. However, all the normals, they lead into special moves. So from a slash, from a kick, from a dust, so on and so forth. And you need to also understand what are the air specials for your opponent. Because some air specials allow your opponent actually to change the trajectory, so they can make, for example, anti-air attempt unsuccessful. So for example, for a character like Sol, he has banded revolver. However, when he jumps, he can do banded revolver. So he can trick you, for example, with using that for his trajectory. As you can see, it changes his trajectory. So understand what your opponent can also do in the air. Yeah. So when it comes to blocking, the general idea for me is always simple in my opinion. When you're blocking basic mix-ups, like for example Gatling strings, always start by blocking low. Because in this game, jump cancelable buttons are very few far in between, and on the other hand, you don't have a lot of instant overheads, and conversion of instant overheads in this game actually relies on meter. So the general rule is block low, keep your hand also on the throw button, Because a lot of opponents, what they can do actually is they try to pressure you, like with their usual Gatling, and they will try to throw you. This is something to keep in mind if your opponent doesn't have meter. So block low. Some characters, they have like command overheads, for example, like Zato or Mei or something. That's the time they can do it. If you see your opponent jumping, always start your basic blocking with a blocking high. And once you go down to the floor, go low and keep your hand on the block. I feel like this is the general rule. The other rule actually is that be patient. you don't need to feel like you're stressed or you need to get out of this pressure situation, because if you be patient, that's the time that you allow your opponent to start showing mistakes in the pressure or in their offensive game, etc. So be patient, use this basic blocking technique, and let's move to the other point. The other point actually is that you need to start identifying what are the gaps in your opponent's pressure and where are your punish points. This comes from knowledge of the game and by playing, and also from having some visual cues. Always punishing your opponents like gaps and block things relies on reactions. So this comes in with experience, and this comes actually in training. So if you're having like a certain scenario that's giving you a hard time, my advice always is go to training mode and try to lab it out and see how you can actually overcome this. So in this example, we will have Sol do a close slash into a 2 heavy slash into Baden Bringer. The first attacks can be blocked mid, but the Baden Bringer needs to be blocked high. And after Baden Bringer, if you block it, Sol is relatively safe. So the only punish you can do actually is just a grab. But let me show you an example how you can deal with it if you identify that kind of gap in the string. So as you can see, depending on the gap of your opponent, you need to expose like the gaps in the pressure strings. The other thing actually, in some of this in this game, even though they have slow startup, on block they're super very plus. For example, let's just show a quick example with Sol, which is Fafnir. Fafnir, as you can see, it does like a guard crush motion, and it's very plus on block. However, those moves, they cannot usually be done on their own, for example. They cannot be done part of a block string. So usually what the opponent will try to do is they will do like a really plus normal, then they will try to cancel into this. If you see those kinds of moves, be ready to punish, because the startup is very slow. So let's just show a quick example now. Yeah, so as you can see, these moves, if they are blocked, you have to respect. However, if they are, like you identify that this is a slow startup move that can be punished, it can lead to really dear punishes. Now let's talk a little bit about anti-airing. I covered this in my optimization guide. However, let's talk about it from a perspective of defense, which is basically you're not really looking to convert into something. You're just trying to get your opponent off your back. So, as I explained in my previous video, RAMLETHAL has 2 main anti-airs. 2 heavy slash and 6 punch, and which I consider also jump punch. Jump punch is really good because it's a good air-to-air challenge button. 2 heavy slash is good if the jump trajectory of your opponent is very predictable, and 6P is an all-purpose anti-air. The thing is that in this game, there is low reward coming from 6Ps because it doesn't lead into much once your opponent, you hit them with it. 2 heavy slash for RAMLETHAL, it has higher reward, however, it doesn't have anti-air properties. It just have like a really big anti-air, so a very big hitbox in front. So learn how to use each anti-air properly. I'll just give a brief example. So let's talk about the mentality of anti-airing. Because in this game, even if your opponent jumps and they block your anti-air, they get pushed very far away. So you reset the situation back to neutral. So let's just show a quick example with Sol now. As you can see, the situation goes back to neutral unless your opponent will do a faultless, an instant block in the air. So this is something you need to identify. So if you are in the corner, for example, you need to be careful because Ram's anti-airs don't really have very good hitboxes in the air, and it pushes her a little bit forward. So something like that, so your opponent can cross you up. However, in that kind of situation, use 2 heavy slash, as you can see. Because 2 heavy slash will not push you forward like 6 punch. Something to keep in mind. Hitboxes for RAMLETHAL's anti-airs are really weird. If you see your opponent jumping, and even if they're blocking and they're very predictable with your jump arc, you can just go for a jump punch, something like that. Because even if they try, for example, to block it, still, you can actually get them off your shoulders. So use 6P as a general anti-air for like moves that are coming very early from the air or very late jump-ins. And also use 2 heavy slash for predictable jumps because the reward is higher. And jump P, use it when you like read your opponents are actually jumping on you, or when you see that your opponent is coming like with the slow air normal, so you can actually challenge them with it. Okay, now let's talk about the challenge normals of RAMLETHAL. By that, I mean, like, what are the buttons that you can press during your opponent's gaps in their strings, and what are the buttons that you can actually just get the opponent off your shoulder. Before we talk about that, we need to explain a very simple concept in fighting games, which is called hitboxes and hurtboxes. Hitboxes is when you do an attack, and there is a specific range in that attack that your opponent cannot punish you for it. So that's what we call actually a hitbox. Yeah, so when you do, for example, an attack like far slash, the hitbox of the attack is not really the length of the sword. There is a hidden portion of the sword from the front. That's what we call actually a hitbox. And there is a certain hitbox, like within RAMLETHAL, that if Sol attacks it, that's what we call like a hurt box. So usually hurt boxes for attacks like that are usually horizontal and they have little vertical range. That means that if RAMLETHAL does this, your Sol can jump actually over her and punish her like with a jumping slash or something. However, if Sol tries to attack the portion that has a hitbox and it doesn't like attach to RAMLETHAL's hitbox, that's the time that you can actually get them off your back and you can challenge them. So this is something to keep in mind. This is relatively the case for all of RAMLETHAL's attacks, because the nice thing about RAMLETHAL is she has really, really good hitboxes, by the way. Her hitboxes are not really that long, especially this is like really the case with Guilty Gear. So identify which attacks actually have good hitboxes. If you want to see the hitboxes of RAMLETHAL in particular, I'll be linking a tweet below. This tweet is amazing, and the guy put a lot of effort just to show it. Just understand something, that you don't want to challenge with the attack with a bad hitbox and a large hitbox. That's the time that you can actually get punished. So let's just show an example now. What are the challenge normals of RAMLETHAL? Close range, you can do either 2P or 5P. Those attacks both have 5 same startups, and they're very good to interrupt that pressure of your opponent. They're also really good if your opponent is trying to go like for a tick throw setup. Tick throw is when they do like a quick attack, then they have to dash a little bit in order to grab you. The other thing also is 5K is a really good challenge button, because this is a button that almost hits from the round start position. And this is actually if your opponent trying like to pressure you from far away, a lot of times you can actually just hit them with that. Also 5K is a very good round start button, by the way, because it's a 7 frame startup button, and it's actually good hitbox actually. It reaches really far, unbelievably far actually. Don't use heavy slash close, don't use far slash close. Why? Because these normals are really slow. So if your opponent's attack is much faster than yours, they can punish you like with a counter. So be careful. If you're trying to challenge someone who's trying to attack you, or they're doing like a range pressure, that's the time actually you can go for a far slash or a 5 heavy slash. But keep something in mind. Far slash and far heavy slash have very slow recoveries. If your opponent is at this range, challenge them with case. They're fast enough. If they are really close to you, you can challenge them with those. Also, a lot of times if your opponent is trying to approach you from the air, Jumpy is an amazing godlike button to do air-to-air challenges, because this button has an excellent hitbox and it links to each other. And if you manage to hit the opponent, for example, you can cancel it into this, which leads into a safe jump setup. So let me just show you like quick examples how you can challenge Sol, but keep something in mind. This is something you learn with matchup experience. With the more you play the game, the more you play RAMLETHAL and the more you understand other characters. A follow-up video will come later on to explain to you actually how you can do like these kind of things per character, or like we'll make like a general video how to explain it, like for the characters that give Ram the most trouble. Okay, now let's touch up about the subject of using faultless defense versus using instant block. In this game, actually, the pushback like from normals is really, really high. So that has like two sides of a coin. Number one, it can either make some attacks like easily punishable, and it can make a lot of attacks actually safer. So you as a run player, you need to understand how you can either make your opponent come closer to you to punish them like to their unsafe normals, or how you can push them like far away enough for their attacks actually to whiff for you to be able actually to punish them accordingly. Because faultless defense, which is the defense that you do by pressing two buttons in combination, except the dust button, because if you press another button with burst, you will do burst. That consumes meter, however, it will push the opponent really far away. And on the other hand, instant blocking is the blocking that when you do, your opponent will always be stuck to you. The advantage of faultless defense is it allows some of your opponent's special strings to whiff, and whiff in this game is very long for some attacks, especially for the slash and heavy slash normals, so which allows you actually to go for a punish. And instant block, it's on the other hand keeps you very close to your opponent, so in case they do like a very slow startup move, you can actually be close to them enough to punish. So let's just show a quick example. This also comes with matchup experience, and that's something you learn along the way. I feel like this is a very important defensive mechanic in this game, and you need to understand the ranges which you can actually, how you can block each attack so you can punish it accordingly. Because in this game, if you get too close to your opponent, you have a chance actually to throw them. So if they're still recovering from some of the moves, you can actually just get them off you like by a throw, or you can actually, if you have a normal fast enough, you can use it to challenge them actually and get a counter hit, or you get your time back. Okay, now let's talk about a very important defensive tool that I think every RAMLETHAL main should learn by now already. We're talking about fuzzy defense. So let's explain fuzzy defense in a very quick manner, because I don't want to do like the long, complicated one. Basically, fuzzy defense is when you input two different blocking stances, for example, like standing into crouching or standing into jumping, to avoid like a two-way mix-up. What do we talk about two-way mix-up? Is when your opponent has the opportunity to mix it up in two different ways. Either they can go for a high or a low, or they can actually go for a, what we call actually like a throw mix. So a character that gives a lot of RAMLETHAL players trouble is actually Aino, because once she float, she has two options. Either she can go high or she can go low. So example, something like that. So if she knocks you down, then she will go back to her mix into a throw, etc. So the way that you deal with this is you need to understand which attack is the fastest for your opponent. So in the case of Aino, I'm giving her as an example, but this applies for characters like Leo, Anji, Zato, you know. So this applies to all of these kind of characters. So in the case of Aino, the hover kick is faster than hover empty to kick. Because against Aino, if she's floating, you should always be blocking high, because her float K is really fast, her float into 2K is really slower. It's still fast, but slower. So the way you do it is, when you see Aino floating and she's next to you, you first block high, then you go into low. So you block high the amount of frames that Aino needs to do the jump K. And once that's over, you immediately switch to blocking low. This way, if she attacks high, you block long enough to block high, and if she goes low, you're already crouch blocking. So let's just show a quick example now. I need you to pay attention to the virtual stick in this situation, which I will slow down. As you can see, I started by blocking high, then I went into low. The amount of high block that I did is equal to the amount of like frames it needs for Ainu to do her jump K. As you can see, since she did her ball, like fireball, and in pressure, I have no choice but to block. So learn how to do that. However, the problem with like fuzzy blocking is this loses really to throws. Because if you keep like blocking like that, what Aino can do actually is she can just float into a throw because you're too busy blocking. So just keep that something in mind. The other technique actually is what we call fuzzy jumping. Fuzzy jumping is when you do a back block animation or from crouching into a jump. This helps you avoid double overheads actually. But the thing is that this loses actually to either lows or to jump throws, because you're really focused on actually just getting out of the situation. So let me just show a quick example. Fuzzy guarding is not perfect actually, it's fuzzy defense. However, it helps you escape from certain situations that you need to be guessing. So react accordingly and don't rely too much on it. Just use it in the proper situations against the proper characters. Okay, now let's talk about bursting. Bursting is a very precious resource in this game, and I don't feel like you have to like use it in a way that it can be punished. You have to be punished for it, because bursting in this game takes so much time, and damage in Guilty Gear 5 is so high. So you don't want to be punished for bursting in a bad way. So what are the situations that you can use actually Psych Burst as a defender? Number one, if your opponent doesn't have tension meter, because if your opponent has tension meter, he has actually the timing to be able to block it and punish you for it. The other thing is that you can do like Psych Burst if your opponent is not doing a jump cancelable button. So for example, let's say RAMLETHAL will throw like a 5 slash. She cannot jump out of this. Where you should not really burst. You should not burst if your opponent has a jump cancelable button, because as you can see, they can actually just jump out and punish you for it. The other thing is that even if your opponent has a jump cancelable button, just wait for them to do the next attack. That's the time you can burst actually. So learn when you can burst accordingly. The other thing is that in this game, you don't really want your opponent to get positive bonus, because positive bonus will increase their meter gain and it will make it really hard for you, because tension meter in this game is so important. So if you find yourself in a situation that you can actually get out of corner pressure without sacrificing, like getting a lot of damage, you should actually really Psych Burst in that situation, because you don't want your opponent to have meter advantage over you. Bursting in this game, for me, it's an art, because you need to really know when to burst. And to be honest, a lot of rounds that I'm taking in this game and a lot of things I'm taking is because people are bursting badly. So don't burst after a jump cancelable normal, something like that. Don't burst if your opponent has meter, because they can still punish you. Wait for them to do a move that they are fully committed to. So for example, as you can see in that situation, you can actually get out of it. Also, be mindful of the range of your burst, because sometimes, let's say for example, your opponent is attacking you like from the air, or they're juggling you, and you try to do a burst. As you can see, for the full duration until you land to the ground, you are still in recovery, so they can punish you really deeply. And keep in mind the range of the explosion. Usually the explosion range, like for the burst to push your opponent away, it's really this close to the opponent. As you can see, I'm standing actually just here. That's the time that the burst will hit. So be careful when you burst. Bursting in this game carelessly is so dangerous, because you're gonna eat a fat punish for it. Okay? Now let's talk about the usage of Roman cancel on defense. On offense, I've covered this extensively already. So in this game, if your opponent is pressuring you and you do an RC in the middle of the pressure, you will get something called the yellow Roman cancel. This yellow Roman cancel, actually, it will push the opponent away and it will help you reset the situation a little bit back to neutral. But you need to understand something, that yellow Roman cancels in this game can be baited. So do yellow Roman cancels the same way you are doing burst, in the middle of your opponent's string, and if your opponent is doing like a normal that they cannot jump cancel out of, or a normal with a longer recovery, that's the time that you need to use it. So let's just show an example, like when to do it and when not to do it. The other thing is that you have also blue Roman cancelling. The nice thing about blue Roman cancelling is if your opponent has gaps in their block string actually, and the timing is really far, or they're trying to do like what we call stagger pressure, you can actually use it to like slow down the time and actually have enough time to punish their strings. So this is somehow considered offensive, but you use it to get out of a defensive situation. So let's just show like a quick example. You only use this if your opponent has big gaps in their pressure. Because if they have very small gaps in their pressure, the yellow Roman cancel will come. And same like the burst, the yellow Roman cancel actually also has a range for it. So let's talk a little bit now about her reversal. Her reversal has an amazing hitbox. However, it requires for you to have 50 tension meter. What's good about this reversal? That if you have both of the swords, the reversal has a very huge hitbox. As you can see, it hits a lot, like very far, vertically and horizontally. However, the less swords you have, the less damage it has, and the less of a hitbox it has. So if you do it from the same range as I showed you earlier, like for example from here, see it hits here. However, if I throw the swords and I get back to the same position, it doesn't hit at all. So that's something to keep in mind. So when you should actually use this reversal, super. The nice thing about this game is, for good or for worse, that is that like reversals, unless they are like instant block, they are really, really safe. So when you should actually use this reversal. Number one, if you are in the corner and your opponent keeps jumping on you, even if it's a safe jump, don't be afraid to do the reversal. Why? Because unless they instant block it, they will either get punished or it will really push them far away. The second thing actually is that do it within the gaps of their strings. Third one is when they're doing their OK and you know that like their OK or like their get up game has gaps in it, or if they're going for something really super committal that allows you to do like the reversal. Something to keep in mind that reversal windows in this game are so tight, by the way. So between you getting up and doing the reversal input, you have to be really, really super fast. So let's just show examples of what I just said. So as you can see, use your reversal wisely, and you can actually just feel okay about using it just to get them off your back if you know they're not doing Faultless defense, because this will return the situation back to neutral. So at the end of the day, you have to implement all of this into your game plan, actually. And you need to understand something, that playing defensive and having like a good defense is something you develop over time, both as a player and also with more knowledge of the game. Because the more you play against other characters and other players, the more understanding actually you have like about what's happening in the game, what your other character can do, and what your character, for example, RAMLETHAL, can do against your opponent. I also want to talk a little bit about the defensive mentality in fighting games. Because offense is, for me, very easy to do. Because it's something that you just train your muscle memory to do it, and you just do it when you see the opportunity. However, defense is something that's very reactionary, and it requires to have strong mental fortitude. Because no one likes to defend in fighting games, and no one likes just to be hit all the time. You have to be patient when you're defending, and you have to understand something is the better the defense you have, and the more you block, the more your opponent will start to make mistakes. You know, that's why players like Goichi and those kind of guys, they have godlike defense. And they eventually crack their opponents with their offense because they start to show like what are the weaknesses of the offense of the opponent. So be patient, number one. Number two, don't be afraid to defend, by the way. Number three, mix-up in this game relies on meter. So don't lose like to your impatience. Identify the gaps. See what are the jump cancelable buttons. Challenge when it's the right time to do so. Use your resources wisely, you know. Tension meter in this game is so important, by the way, and you gain it so fast, so don't be afraid to use it. Be conservative with your burst and make sure that burst is used when actually you can just get back into the match and you can avoid your opponent actually getting more meter. So this is like what I want like to impart with you. Play the game, get comfortable with it, and understand like what are your defensive options. RAMLETHAL has excellent, very strong defense and neutral. However, unfortunately, her defense is not that good because she doesn't have meterless reversals. Okay, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. The upcoming videos will focus more like on character specific things for defense, because I feel like some characters, they need their own videos, or they need like big chunks, like just to talk about them separately. So take this video like as general tips, like how to play defensive and what you can do as a RAMLETHAL, like from a defensive standpoint. And hopefully this will allow you like to survive more and just to like be able to defend your way, like back to your neutral or back to getting your turn, like from offensive opponents, because there's a lot of oppressive characters in this game. Believe it or not, يعني more than RAMLETHAL. Like you have your Souls, your Leos, your Anges. So yeah, implement those, and I hope that this will help up your defensive game. Okay, guys, thank you. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't done already. If you have any questions, ask me in the comment section, and I will reply to you. And I'll catch you in the next video. Yalla, peace.